Hi, I'm Darryl. Darryl Learie. What I'm going to talk about is in the face of everything science believes, everything society believes, but someone's got to say it. I believe that older women are beautiful. When I say older women, I mean like 40 to 65. I'm a 38-year-old male myself. Even when I was in my 20s, 18, I started to see more physical beauty in women that were in their 40s, mid-40s, more so than women my age. Sexologists and evolutionists, you're wrong. You're wrong about the whole thing. See, science would have it that because I'm a male, I should seek a younger woman because she brings better promise of higher quality genetics and genetics that haven't aged, because a woman's egg will age with time. And so if you look at older couples that have babies, the incidence of like Down syndrome babies, you know, say at a couple in their 20s, will be quite low, like 1 in tens of thousands, and then in their 30s it'll be like 1 in thousands, and then in their 40s it'll be like, you know, 1 in hundreds. So sexologists would believe that I'm designed to seek out the best possible youthful genetics in what would be deemed as youthful looking women, because my purpose and my complete motivation from my very subconscious is to seek out the best suitor to procreate with, to create the best offspring, and supposedly every motive in my life is dictated by this. So most psychologists would posit that, you know, if I'm 38 now, but if I was in my 20s, you know, and I said, yeah, that woman looks a lot prettier than in her mid-40s than this young girl in her 18s or her 20s, then psychologists would begin writing up theories about how I must have had some profound experience with an older woman, or had extremely loving parents that were very old, and since we in part model our sexual preferences after our parents, that somehow this has psychologically affected my sexual preferences. The science would have it believed that it is not possible for me to find more physical attraction in older women, unless, with exception, that there's some kind of underlying psychology, some profound experience, or some emotional attachment, some kind of underlying emotional issue, or attempt to attach to something that I have not otherwise dealt with in my years, and I played that out through my sexual preferences. Well, I call that bullshit. Society has a powerful message, and too many women are buying it. It's this message that youth equates to beauty. Too many commercials play off how to look younger. You know, try our product, look 20 years younger, look 10 years younger. When older women get complimented, especially in their mid-40s, for example, the compliment comes in the form of, wow, you look so much younger. The very conceptual idea that old can be beautiful is outright not accepted by society. Now, I know what you're going to say. You're going to say, well, what about this so-called cougar phenomenon, which I don't really believe in, and the more perverted MILF craze that you see in younger adults? Well, I'll explain that. The so-called cougar phenomena, which I think has just been propagated more so by the media, but I don't really think it really exists in the large extent that it seems to. I think is it's a promise of a better sexual relationship, supposedly, because supposedly older women are less sexually restrictive. They're more settled in their life. They have less emotional issues. Supposedly they're more sexually experienced. So this promise of this better sexual relationship, you know, with some women that are looking for younger guys who are more open-minded or you know, energetic, you know, because men do have a bad rep of becoming more and more closed-minded as they age. Again, it's very sexually themed, and the whole MILF thing, you know, I mean, women can become mothers in their 30s and 40s and 20s even. So, I mean, relative to age, you know, MILF, which stands for Mom I'd Like to Fuck, is more of a sexual perversion. You know, it's more like a sexual get off on this idea of going for something that seems more taboo, you know, than having like a simple monogamous relationship or whatever. You know, it's you know, so I mean, teenagers who are like extremely young, relatively speaking, haven't even reached adulthood. You know, if we say that life really starts at adulthood, you might see their friend's mom, who's really not too old. She's in her 30s, you know, and she's skinny and large-breasted, and you know, and because they haven't grown up, it's something that's so out of their experience, you know, they begin to lust for it in almost a fetish sort of way. But that has nothing to do with beauty. Sexy and beauty is just two different things. Now, before I met my lovely wife, Deb, who's 4 years older than I am, which works out to my advantage, because the more she ages, you know, the odd gray hair, the, you know, odd wrinkle or whatever, the more I find her physically attractive. So here comes the real paradox. You know, if society inherently believes that youth and beauty, you know, purely belong to one another, and the most celebrated and seeked out youth are 18 to 25 in a legal aspect, then logically people must adhere to the belief that once they're outside of that range, they're doomed to get uglier, if that is their innate belief system. So when people say, "Wow, Grandma, you look beautiful," or "Wow, Mom, you look beautiful," then therefore logically they have to be lying. I'm sorry, it's if that is what they believe, that youth equates to beauty, then logically they have to be lying. I mean, therefore, you know, the white lie, that's the polite thing to say. But who is not to say that wrinkles aren't beautiful? Who is not to say that the aging process that women go through is not a beautiful process? Why can it not be a beautiful process? This I do not understand. You know, and I've noticed that I carefully censored the genitalia and the nipple and the surrounding areola of the nipples with flowers, you know, because technically nudity isn't allowed on YouTube. And then I just sat back and prayed that YouTube wouldn't remove it because I was trying to make a point. And the point I was trying to make is that, well, these women that were posing on the site, like my nude body, obviously want to show off their nude body for whatever reason. The unfortunate part was most of them seemed to be trying to pose in a sexually suggestive way as to entertain sexual opportunities. Or maybe they were vain. But I found the collection of them. I made a picture slideshow, tried to find the best royalty-free music I could to sort of fit it, and made it into a minute-and-a-half production. Within 5 days, the video jumped up to 500 views. When I looked at the analytics, the majority was male viewers that made up 80% of the entire chart, and 20% were female. Within the 80%, the lowest demographics by far were the teenage demographics, 13 to 18, 18 to 25. What's interesting though is the vast majority of the male demographics was men in that same age range, which is indicative to me that 40-year-old men and 50-year-old men and are interested in seeing nude women of that same age. So one could build an argument that inversely those same men are not compelled to see younger women, but women in that same age group. Now science would tell us this cannot be so. If we draw a bell curve, so it's a typical bell curve of beauty as casted by votes of the general public, split it up into 6 deviations across. Within the first 2 and largest deviations that separate that bell curve, within the big hump of the bell curve, 66% of the population would fall in there. That would basically be your 18 to 25-year-old women. 66% of the population would be just loving the appearance of those women. What people forget though is within that same bell curve is the extreme right and the extreme left. Okay, so within the mass of the bell curve, you know, we would have people seeking the most seeked out women, which would be 18 to 25, characteristic by skinny, large-breasted, brunette. So, but then psychologists would explain the rest of the bell curve, the extreme sides, the remaining 19% here and 19% there, as being psychologically influenced, that those people had been influenced by their environment, or, you know, were brought up by their mothers without a father figure, whatever, so forth. That's the whole ideal of beauty is supposedly symmetry. This symmetry, this idea that the most symmetrical face is therefore the most beautiful face, because when cells divide, the better genes they have, the better they equally divide without mistake. And like a photocopier, carries on and carries on and carries on. So when you photocopy something, you have a bad copy. I mean, you have a really good copy, but when you photocopy it, the more defects you get in the photocopy, and then after a few hundred photocopies, the end result doesn't nearly match the original. But the better genes you supposedly have, then that last picture will still look far better than, say, a less quality photocopier. So sexologists would have you to believe that also it is not human for people to enjoy what would be deemed as physical flaws. As a human male, science doesn't permit me to find beauty in wrinkles or spotted skin or anything that has to do with the aging process, because that would mean that I'd be finding beauty in flaws, what are deemed to be flaws. And that would go against the whole theories of facial symmetry, youth, thaw. Thaw is a naturally occurring spiral that you've seen many times. It would go against another concept of beauty of the third. This is when you take up art, the face is drawn in thirds. There's supposedly a mathematical model to the perfect face. So for me to find a woman with a larger nose more attractive than a woman with a symmetrically incised nose is not permitted by science. In which case, psychologists, sexologists, and evolutionists, that's for the sexologists and evolutionists, would all tell me that, well, my brain has been influenced by unknown or subconscious psychological events, or my nurturing has been shifted from the mean, from the average evolution of how people develop within their brain. So at the same time, all those things that we associate with old are forbidden. So for me to find more beauty in gray hair than someone with brunette hair, well, there's got to be something not quite right with me. Or I've got some type of fetish or some type of perversion, you know, that maybe somehow I get the excitement of getting off on something that is less done, more taboo type thing. So in my slideshow, what I basically did was I compiled women and I threw them all in there, except for the ones that were trying to be sexually suggestive in their posing. You know, I tried to get them in as much as possible in their natural environments. So it didn't matter if they had stretch marks, it didn't matter if they were overweight, I mean, it didn't matter if they were small-breasted. I just wanted normal, real women. Because it's very sick ideology that's out there, and to innately believe that as you age you become uglier, you know, it's you psychologically try to attempt to make yourself look younger, because that association youth and beauty, you know, beauty equates to youth, youth equates to beauty. That has to be the most absolutely damaging thing to your self-esteem. You know, it's odd. It's